Just, I see. Yeah, well, let's let folks join us and then we'll get started shortly. We'll just give it a few more seconds and then we'll get started. Mhm. Okay, I think we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to thank our series sponsor, the Job Gym. They are a great partner to have, and they've certainly helped us with all of our employment and training needs over the years. I'd like to introduce Amanda Shannon from the Job Gym to say a few words. Amanda?
Thanks so much, Dolores. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Really excited to have you join us and very excited to hear all of the information that Stephen's going to share with us. It's a great topic and I'm really looking forward to it. I wanted to share an event that we have scheduled that is coming up on Tuesday, our Skilled Trades Career Employment Expo. I'm going to put in a shameless little plug for this. We are hosting this in partnership with the Town of Fort Erie and Kappa College on Tuesday, June 24th from 2 to 6 p.m. at Kappa College. We do have about 19 exhibitors signed up right now, all from the trades industry or specializing in that. Some are hiring, some are promoting trades. Lots of great information to be had. So today we're still accepting employers. If anybody would like to join in on this event, it is free and has some really great visibility. And feel free to pass along the information to any job seekers that are considering careers in the trade industry. All the marketing will go live on our website, actually, probably right now. So thanks so much for this opportunity. And again, really looking forward to everything today, Stephen.
Great. Thanks, Amanda, and I'll see you there next week. So today we welcome Stephen Juhasz. So Stephen is a certified human resources professional with over 15 years of leadership experience in recruitment, talent development, and workforce program implementation. As a job developer with PC Works, Stephen spearheads pre-employment initiatives in partnership with Employment Ontario and local stakeholders supporting employers across the Niagara region. He consults on a range of HR topics, including effective hiring practices, employee engagement, and retention strategies. With a solid background in business administration and human resources, Stephen is passionate about building strong connections, fostering workplace readiness, and driving meaningful employer engagement. Today, he's going to share some of his insight and provide you with some practical advice on how to keep your team motivated and engaged. The format for our session will be as follows. You can submit your questions throughout the presentation through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll address all of the questions at the end of the presentation. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to you, Stephen. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Dolores and Amanda. So while I get my screen here shared, just a quick little mini housekeeping thing. If it sounds like I cannot breathe due to my allergies, I do apologize. And if you also hear any children screaming in the background, it is on the wall behind me. So here we are. Let me know if you can see my screen okay.
Yes, we can see it.
All good? Okay, perfect. So today's topic is going to be about keeping the spark alive, easy ways to motivate and engage your team. So to start off, I wanted to introduce PC Works a bit more. PC Works is the employment services division of Port Cares, proudly serving as an Employment Ontario service provider. Our dedicated team both supports both employers and job seekers across the Niagara region by offering tailored employment solutions and connecting local talent with local opportunities. So Port Cares, Community Association for Resource Extension, is a nonprofit organization based in Port Colborne, Ontario, that's dedicated to supporting individuals and families facing social and economic challenges. Since 1986, Port Cares has provided a range of services to help community members improve their quality of life. Our core services include food security and meal programs through our Reach Out Center, eviction prevention and crisis support by offering crisis intervention, advocacy, referrals to mental health and addiction services, as well as our child and family services through our early on centers that provide programs for children and families focusing on early childhood development and parenting support. We just opened up our Chestnut Place, which is an affordable housing initiative offering housing options for individuals and families in need. And at PC Works, we are dedicated to bridging the gap between Niagara's businesses and the region's talented job seekers. To support local employers, we offer a comprehensive range of recruitment and training services designed to meet hiring needs. So, keeping the spark alive. We're here to talk about something that every workplace needs but often struggles to maintain: motivation and engagement. More specifically, how to keep that spark alive on your team without needing a massive budget, a big initiative, or a complete culture overhaul. The truth is, keeping your team motivated and engaged doesn't have to be complicated at all. This session is about easy, practical strategies that you can start doing right away that actually make a difference. Whether you're leading a large team or working closely with just a few people, these simple approaches can boost morale, strengthen connection, and bring energy back into your workplace. Now, most organizations have or should have a formal policy in place that speaks to employee engagement for any comments, complaints, etc., that they can submit them through HR directly, through an anonymous line, quarterly roundtables, or other policies that are in place. Today, we're going to be focusing more on the motivation and engagement side of things. So to begin, let's dissect those two words when it's associated with your team. Employee motivation is the level of energy, commitment, and creativity that a person brings to their job. It's what drives someone to show up, to do their best, and care about their work, not just because they have to, but because they want to. Employee engagement is the emotional connection an employee feels towards their work, their team, and their organization. It reflects how committed, involved, and enthusiastic they are about their job. When motivation and engagement are present, they show up in the everyday moments. You'll notice it in how someone can tackle a challenging task, how they collaborate with their peers, and even how they greet the day. Motivated and engaged employees are likely to go the extra mile, find purpose in their role, and contribute to a positive workplace culture. But it doesn't stop there. These two factors play a critical role across the entire employee life cycle. So when you're even attracting talent, people want to work where they feel they're going to be valued and energized. During their onboarding and integration into the organization, the first impression matters. A motivated and welcoming team sets the tone for how new employees connect with their role and the organization. Under development and growth, engaged employees are more open to learning, taking on new challenges, and growing with the organization rather than outgrowing it. During retention, people just don't just leave their jobs, they leave workplaces where they feel unseen or disconnected. Engagement and motivation help to keep people feeling invested and fulfilled. Even during offboarding and beyond, at the end of an employment relationship, motivated and engaged employees often leave as advocates rather than critics, which can then influence your reputation as an employer. So let's dig into our first core concept of our talk today, the employee motivation. At its core, it is what drives people to act. In the workplace, it's what encourages someone to show up, give their best effort, and take pride in what they do. It's the fuel behind productivity, innovation, collaboration, and even retention. Now, employee motivation isn't a one-size-fits-all concept. It's shaped by different forces, and usually we break them into two categories. They're intrinsic and extrinsic motivation. So intrinsic motivation is the motivation that comes from within. It's when someone is driven by personal satisfaction, purpose, or passion. Think of an employee who says, I love solving problems, or I really enjoy helping people. These employees are often self-motivated. Their drive doesn't necessarily depend on rewards or recognition. It really does come from the work itself. On the other side of things, extrinsic motivation is fueled by external rewards. These could be things such as a paycheck, a bonus, praise, recognition, promotions, perks of a job, job security, benefits. And the list could keep going. Now, both types are valid and important. You don't have to pick one or the other. The key here really is balance for the two. If your workplace only relies on extrinsic motivators, such as money or titles, it might work in the short term, but employees can lose interest once the novelty of those things wear off. On the flip side, relying solely on intrinsic motivation can lead to burnout if employees aren't recognized or compensated fairly for it. So why does motivation matter? So why should we actually care about this? Why does it really matter to you if your team, as a team leader or an employer, why does it matter to you? It's because motivated employees perform better, and it's as simple as that. Motivated employees are more productive and more focused. They're more adaptable to change, more likely to show initiative and creativity, more likely to collaborate effectively, and they're less likely to call in sick or to even look for another job. Now, if we move on to the key influencers of an employee motivation, we can dive into what actually influences the motivation beyond salary or free snacks in the break room. So I found some key factors are purpose and meaning. People want to feel like their work matters. It helps employees to see the bigger picture and how their work connects to the company's mission or impacts the customers or clients or even the community. Autonomy in a role. People give some control over, if you give people some control over how they do their work, flexibility and trust goes a long way in building that motivation for somebody. Under recognition, a simple thank you or a great job can be incredibly powerful. Recognition doesn't always have to be formal or financial. It just really has to be genuine. Under growth opportunities, when people can learn, grow, and move forward, they stay motivated. That doesn't always mean promotions. It could be such things such as a new project, mentorship opportunities, or skill building. Under positive work environment, motivation thrives in workplaces where people feel respected, supported, and safe to speak up. I think it's a big call out too throughout the presentation that ultimately, when an employee does speak up or speak out, there needs to be a certain level of trust there that there won't be any repercussions for it. So keep that in mind. Under connection, employees are more motivated when they feel connected to their team, their leaders, and the organization's value. Now, I've heard employers say if we give employees too many training opportunities, then they'll just leave. While that is a valid concern, the thing is, if you don't invest in them, they may leave, or worse, they might stay and be unmotivated. They may be disengaged, and they may bring down their coworkers' morales. Training doesn't drive people away. The lack of growth does. If you think back, have you ever had a manager that dangles a promotion or opportunity, but then never follows through with it? People want to feel like they're learning, that they're progressing and valued. When you give them opportunities to build skills, you're not just preparing them for their next job, you're showing them that they have a future and can become a valued and motivated. If they could even become a subject matter expert in their role, which will then give them more motivation to stay and to train others on what they know. Okay. While motivation is about what drives a person to act, engagement is about how emotionally connected they are to their work, their team, and their organization as a whole. Think of it like this. Motivation might get someone to show up and complete their tasks. Engagement is what makes them care about the outcome and the people that are around them. Some signs of engagement. Uh, some Sometimes you can really gauge what an engaged employee looks like by their attitude, their willingness to go the extra mile, proactive communication, being proactive rather than reactive, interest in collaboration and team success, commitment to the organization, even when things are getting tough. They're not just clocking in and out, they're mentally and emotionally invested. Engaged employees like what they do, they feel like it matters and that their presence is contributing to something bigger. So before we go any further, let's clear up a common mistake. Engagement is not the same thing as job satisfaction, and it's definitely not just about being busy. Employees can be satisfied with their job and still be disengaged. They might like the paycheck, they might enjoy the short commute, maybe they appreciate the free coffee, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're emotionally invested in their work that they're doing in the organization or the success of their job. Job satisfaction is more about comfort, whereas engagement is about commitment and connection. Someone who is engaged will go the extra mile, not because they have to, but because they care. They're not just happy to be there, they're in it. They're definitely drinking the Kool-Aid. Employee engagement is especially important in fast-paced environments. Being constantly busy or overloaded with tasks does not mean that someone is engaged. In fact, it can actually mean the opposite. An employee might look productive with lots of emails, lots of meetings, but they're most likely disconnected, exhausted, and simply performing out of obligation or even covering the slack of another coworker. Now, why engagement matters? I'm going to take a little sip here. So here's where engagement becomes really powerful. It influences everything. Engaged employees can lead to higher productivity because they care about doing it right. There's going to be lower turnover. They want to stay and grow. There's better quality of service because they feel a sense of ownership. Stronger workplace culture. Engagement is contagious. So when someone's happy, that is infectious to others. And in certain industries, fewer safety incidents can occur because they're more alert and more committed to working safely. So how do you actually create an engaged workforce? Engagement comes from a mix of emotional, social, and professional fulfillment. Here's a few of the key drivers that I have found. I found a big one is going to be trust and leadership. People want to believe in who they're working for. They want somebody that's transparent, honest, and builds loyalty. Communication and feedback. Engaged employees feel informed and heard. Regular two-way feedback is more powerful than just an annual survey or an annual meeting one-on-one. Under growth and development, a clear path forward, such as new skills, responsibilities, or even just personal development, keeps people connected. Recognition and appreciation. Just like motivation, recognition fuels engagement. When people feel seen, they stay invested. Team culture. Engagement is deeply tied to how people feel about their coworkers. If someone enjoys their team, they're more likely to stay engaged, again, even through those tough times. Purpose and alignment. When employees understand the mission and see how their work aligns with it, they feel like they're a part of something meaningful. Engagement is not just HR's job or leadership's job, but in fact, it's everyone's job. Every leader, supervisor, and team member does play a role in creating an environment where people feel connected, capable, and committed. Just like motivation, building engagement doesn't have to be difficult. It's about being consistent, being human, and being intentional on how we treat and support each other at work. Employee engagement and motivation. Is it really that hard? So let's be honest, when we hear the term employee motivation or engagement, it can feel a bit overwhelming. The words themselves sound big, strategic, and expensive. And we picture culture consultants, pulse surveys, and inspirational posters in the break room. So the question is it really that hard to motivate and engage a team? The short answer is no, but it does feel hard. So diving into why it can feel hard. So everyone is different. What motivates one person might not be the same for another person. Some may need recognition, some might want autonomy, others thrive on teamwork. It's easy to feel like you're chasing a moving target. 2, there's never enough time. We're all balancing multiple priorities, putting out fires, and managing tasks on the daily. Finding time to check in or say thank you can slip to the bottom of the list, even when we know that it matters to someone. Number 3, there's not always a big budget. We assume that engagement requires grand gestures such as bonuses, big events, or brand new programs. But the truth is, people rarely stay engaged because of a pizza party or if there's like an outing on a lunch. All they want is a personal thank you email. Number four, there's too much corporate tape. Sometimes, even when we want to do the right thing, recognizing a staff member, be flexible, or implement a change, we feel we're blocked by policies, red tape, or approval change. To simplify all of it, let's reframe it as engagement and motivation means creating a space to keep people feeling seen, supported, and inspired. I want to read that again. Engagement and motivation means creating a space to keep people feeling seen, supported, and inspired. You don't need a new initiative. You just need to be consistent, have human moments. We're all in a place of work, and that's okay that we can be human sometimes. Acknowledging someone's rough day, admitting you don't have all the answers, but you will follow up with them, or simply showing compassion doesn't make you any less of a leader. In fact, what makes you stronger is when a leader actually leads with authenticity. It can build trust. When people feel that they can bring their whole selves to work within a professional and respectful boundaries, obviously, it creates an environment where engagement grows naturally. Being human doesn't mean being unprofessional. It means being real. When you model that, your team feels safer, more connected, and more motivated to show up. At the end of the day, we're not managing machines, we're leading people, and people respond to people who care. So you might be thinking, how do I simplify it? So regular check-ins, not just formal ones. We're not talking hour-long performance reviews. A 5-minute, how are you really doing goes a long way when there won't be negative repercussions. As a leader, what can you do to support them? Additionally, if your organization is heavily top down, it's important to build motivation and engagement at all levels. Make yourself seen or available to build an even stronger foundation and show that you care. Under real appreciation, we often say good job in passing, but intentional recognition makes a difference. Call out specifics, such as, I saw how you handled that tough customer, you stayed calm, and you found a solution that made a really big impact. Recognition doesn't have to be public, just personal. A little flexibility. Uh, Sometimes a little flexibility is all it takes, is giving people a bit of options. When they feel trusted, they feel engaged. Autonomy is one of the most underrated motivators. Don't underestimate it, and don't forget to check in on how your team might be doing with a certain project. Motivation and engagement aren't about grand plans. They're about moments that over time builds trust, connection, and purpose. It's about being consistent and it's being intentional. If you can do that, you don't need a motivational guru or have a massive HR toolkit. You just need to remember that people don't need you to be brilliant. They just need you to care. Motivation drives effort. Engagement drives commitment. We've talked a lot about how to build engagement and now let's talk about what drains it. Sometimes, despite our best intentions, we create environments where people start to disengage, not because they don't care, but because they're unknowingly sending signals that say your energy isn't needed here. Once disengagement sets in, it's really hard to get it back. So let's talk about what causes it and how to avoid it. Forced fun. Let's start with something light but important. Not everything labeled fun is actually motivating. Think mandatory team building, games, holiday contests, pizza parties, something that feels like it's part of a checkbox. These things can be great if they feel authentic, but when they're forced or come at the wrong time, such as during burnout, they can feel like noise or worse, a distraction from real issues in your work. The rule of thumb, if you are unaware of your team's capacity, team building might actually be a burden to them. Vague recognition. Saying great job, everyone feels nice, but it often falls flat. People want to be seen for what they did, not just lumped into generic praises. Recognition that's vague can feel like you're going through the motions instead of actually feeling it. Instead, be specific, be timely with it, and tailor your approach. Some people prefer private appreciation, such as an email. Others love a public shout out during, say, like a morning huddle. Overloading with change without support. Change is part of every workplace, but when you constantly introduce new systems, new expectations, or shifting priorities without explaining why or offering support, that's a fast track to disengagement. People can handle change, but they need a reason behind it. They need a clear path forward, a bit of empathy along the way. Otherwise, they start to feel like they're just bracing for an impact. Lack of transparency. When communication is closed off or decisions happen behind the scenes, people start to feel like they're in the dark. When you're in the dark, it's easy to assume the worst is coming for you. Transparency isn't about sharing everything. It's about being honest, even when the news is tough. A little clarity does go a long way in building trust. Lack of follow through. Uh, this one's a silent killer. If we say we're going to take an action, gather feedback, start an initiative, or even just circle back and then nothing happens, people notice every single time. When follow through is missing, it chips away at your credibility. So if you commit, commit. And if plans change, that's okay. Just communicate that things have shifted and changed and that you will be moving forward. Lack of commitment from leadership. Your team will only take engagement seriously if you do. If motivation and connection are treated like side projects or delegated away without any follow-up, it sends the message that this isn't important. But when leaders show up consistently, they ask how people are doing, they model behaviors that they expect, that's where commitment starts to spread. Close communication. If your workplace has a culture where ideas go unheard, feedback disappears into black holes, or people are afraid to speak up, motivation will drop very quickly. Create space for real conversation, not just meetings, but meaningful dialogue. And don't just ask questions, listen to the answers. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. No training or mentorship opportunities. Finally, if an employee can't see a path forward, they'll start looking somewhere else. Development isn't just about climbing the ladder, it's about feeling like you're growing. When there are no training opportunities, no mentorship, or no investment in skills, people do get stuck, and stuck employees don't stay engaged for very long. Even offering little guidance or cross training can go a long way in showing that you care about their future. Disengagement happens when the spark goes unnoticed. Disengagement doesn't happen overnight, but it builds slowly. And the good news is, though, that every single one of these issues and demotivators has a solution. And none of them really require perfection. It all just comes back to intention. So the next time you're sensing that the spark is dimming a bit, ask what might be getting in the way of someone feeling valued, supported, or seen, because it's easier to prevent disengagement than to fix it once it's taken hold. Now, what does work? So we've just talked about what drains the spark. So now let's shift to what actually builds it, not hypothetically, but in real day-to-day leadership. Most of what works comes down to being intentional, human, and consistent. So let's break this down a bit further. Under honest conversations, this one is foundational. When leaders speak with honesty, even if the news isn't perfect, it does build trust. Employees would rather hear a tough truth rather than being left guessing or strung along. An honest conversation can sound simple as, I don't have that answer yet, but I'll find out. I appreciate the feedback. You're right. That could have been handled better. This change is hard and we're working through it together. You don't have to say everything perfectly, just say it sincerely, because engagement doesn't come from always having good news. It comes from always having a real dialogue with somebody. And remember, follow through on any commitments that you make. Genuine support. Support doesn't always mean fixing a problem. It often means being available. Sometimes people need a second set of eyes, permission to pause, a listening ear without judgment. You can ask questions like, what's getting in your way right now? How can I support you without taking over? Is there anything you need that you haven't asked for? Do you want my opinion or do you just want me to listen? Support sends a message. You're not in this alone. And that builds safety and motivation like nothing else. I'm going to take a little sip here. Following through. Are we sensing a theme yet? This may be the single most powerful and underrated engagement strategy. When you say you'll do something and you actually do it, you send the message, you matter and your time matters. Follow through doesn't have to be huge. Every small follow through builds credibility, and credibility builds commitment. This also goes for employee annual and quarterly meeting reports. Are you even having them? What do you do with those engagement surveys? What do you do with exit interviews? Are they honest? Where is this information going, and what are you actually doing with it? Real appreciation. People crave recognition, not just as employees, but as human beings who are doing their best. Here's the trick for appreciation. It only works when it's authentic and specific. So instead of thanks for all you do, you could say something like, I saw how you stayed late to make sure that file was ready. I know you didn't have to, but it made a real difference. That one sentence change can recharge someone's energy for weeks. It costs nothing, but the return on that is huge. Under regular check-ins, so not just those formal ones, whether it's yearly, a yearly performance review doesn't cut it anymore. And honestly, really, a quarterly chat doesn't either. What matters more are more regular, casual, low pressure conversations. These check-ins don't need to have an agenda, they just need a presence. And when you make them part of your routine, not just when there's a problem, but if it becomes a habit, it creates a culture of ongoing connection, and it's not just reactive management. When your team member has confidence has confidence in you, they will come to you when there's a problem before it snowballs. They might not make headlines, but they make workplaces feel better. And when work feels better, people bring more of themselves to the table every day. Because engagement isn't about perfection, it's about presence. So, appreciation versus recognition. Why both matter. Now that we've talked about employee engagement and motivation, let's take a closer look at something that fuels both feeling valued. And that brings us to two powerful tools, appreciation and recognition. They might sound similar, but they are not the same. And understanding the difference helps us both to be more intentionally. So appreciation, who they are. So appreciation is about valuing the person and not just their output. It's rooted in who they are, their character, their attitude, their presence. It sounds like I really appreciate your calm energy during stressful situations. You bring such a thoughtful perspective to the team. It doesn't go unnoticed. Or thanks for showing up every day with a great attitude. It makes a difference. Appreciation is personal. It doesn't depend on performance or goals. It's about everyday qualities someone brings just by being themselves. And here's the thing, people don't want to feel like they only matter when they hit targets or go above and beyond. They want to feel seen for who they are, not just what they do. And that's what appreciation gives them. To talk about what's on screen, it's all about the person, unconditional, day-to-day, interpersonal. It builds engagement and trust. Under recognition is what they do. So recognition, on the other hand, is about acknowledging accomplishments. It's performance-based, goal-driven, and it highlights success. It might sound like you exceeded your project deadline by 2 weeks. Awesome job. Thanks for taking the lead in onboarding the new hire. You handled that client issue really well. Your communication was spot on. Recognition celebrates action. It says, I see the work that you've done and I want to highlight it. This can be public, like in a team meeting or newsletter, or in private, like a handwritten note, a personal email, or a one-on-one conversation. When done right, recognition reinforces behavior you want to see. And again, it boosts motivation by showing that the effort was noticed. So on the screen as well, recognition, again, about achievement, it's conditional, it's occasional, and this builds motivation and visibility. So you definitely need both, and here's why. So the distinction really matters. If you only recognize achievements, people may feel like they're only valued when they're producing. If you only offer appreciation, people may feel good but unclear about whether it's their contributions or if they're actually meeting expectations. Using recognition to fuel momentum, such as this is working, keep going. Use appreciation to fuel belonging. You matter regardless. And remember, neither needs to be formal or flashy. Sometimes a sentence or two delivered genuinely is all it takes. I'm just going to take a sip here while you read that on the screen. So It isn't about doing more, it's about doing with intention. So what's next? You've heard a lot today, and sorry if I've gone too fast for anyone, but this doesn't have to be something that you add on top of your already full plate. The truth is, motivating and engaging your team isn't about doing more, it's about doing a few things more intentionally. So let's recap some easy, high impact actions that you can start doing right away. Asking for input and actually use it. When people feel heard, they feel invested. Sorry, please ignore my phone. Check in regularly, not just on deadlines, but on people. So check in how they're doing. Encourage teamwork, not just for task work. Collaboration creates connections. Make room for human moments. A 5-minute morning chat or celebrating a small win can shift the energy of a whole day for someone. Thank yous are free. And clarify expectations. It's hard to feel motivated when you don't know what's actually expected of you. These aren't complicated, they're just consistent, meaningful human practices that build connection. Uh, Sometimes the smallest change in your approach can create the biggest change in how people feel at work. And if we can help our team feel a little more connected, a little more energized, and a little more seen, then we're not just keeping the spark alive, we're helping it grow. And thus concludes my speaking portion. So on the screen here, before we move on to any questions, I'd like to provide you my contact details. If there's anything that you want to discuss further on this topic or anything within the scope of the HR function, on the daily, I assist with recruitment services, events, delivery of ministry programs, build and facilitate workshops and training, employee retention, and network opportunities. All right, I am going to shift that. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen.
Okay, well, thanks. That was a great presentation. I learned a lot, some really great tips. We'll see if there's any questions. I do have one just to get things started.
Mhm.
Is there a difference between generations in what motivates people?
Yeah, I definitely can see that, especially in the newer workforce. And again, I circle back to that meeting we had at Brock, where it seems like the younger generations just want the seat at the table. They want to be involved in those conversations. And I've found older employers have found that they don't know whether or not the younger people on the team want that kind of motivation or engagement. But the thing that they're not doing is just asking them by
Mm.
just taking 2 minutes out of the day to say, hey, is this something you might be interested in? Because then it snowballs. It becomes a mentorship opportunity. It creates that dialogue and helps them grow and stay motivated with the company.
So if you have a workplace that has different generations, you
Mhm.
really have to tailor to what that individual needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure if anyone else is finding this, but I'm finding a lot of the much younger job seekers who are entering the workforce, they're very task focused. And if you don't give them the task list to work on, they're not going outside the scope. And I think that's when engagement comes in to become proactive rather than reactive. So if leadership, and again, that's why I talk top down, if they are very fluid and very open to dialogue with people, I find that they can then motivate and create that conversation of dialogue that creates that same mentorship opportunity for those younger employees to become more proactive rather than reactive. And they'll actually be able to fill up their calendar, which would then create their own autonomy, which creates their own flexibility, which then builds on trust. So it snowballs in a better direction rather than a whoopsie direction.
And do you find that most, well, I don't want to lead the question, but are are workplaces utilizing mentorships and those types of incentives?
I would actually say they're definitely lacking in the mentorship capacity. I'm finding a lot of people are struggling, especially in the trades where they're saying too many people are about to retire and they don't have enough, say, journeymen in there to now train apprentices. I know this is very specific, but it is definitely across the board, whereas they're not taking that initiative to say maybe take these retirees and bring them back on a consulting basis to start training and mentoring the younger people to actually keep the skills alive and keep the workforce thriving while also creating autonomy for both the retiree potentially and the new apprentice. And that kind of goes across the board. I find a lot of senior leadership, they don't leave seats at the table for people who aren't, say, in C-suite levels. But I'm also finding that there is a gap between, say, a C-suite level versus management. Do they actually know what the truth is happening on their teams? Which then falls back into in employee engagement surveys. Are they actually doing anything with that information? Or are people even being truthful on these surveys? Like, is there a disconnect? And if there is, what's going to be done to help support the team to actually make people feel like they're contributing to the right opportunities?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very interesting point about the trades and bringing people back
Mhm.
to help train and mentor. I just recently did a presentation to one of the community seniors advisory groups, and they're looking at, how do we stay engaged? How do we, continue to contribute to our communities? And it seems to me like there's a real natural opportunity for
Mhm.
folks who have the expertise to maybe be a little more engaged with some of these workplaces to provide that mentorship. Could be a good pilot project, Stephen.
Honestly, absolutely. Because I find a lot of the people that I work with on a day-to-day, if they are retired, they're itching to do something during their week.
Yeah,
And to be able to actually pass along their knowledge and know that it's through a credible source and it's through somebody who's done it for the last 10 to 25 years. That way it's not going to waste and it is training the next generation to be prepared.
yeah. So I'm going to just bring Amanda back in if
Mhm.
she's still with us. Is there any kind of funding or opportunities for us to tap into to get something like this off the ground?
I think Stephen and I both we facilitate Canada Ontario Job Grant, so that is a program that employers can take advantage of to upskill existing team members. It can't be used for business consulting, but there is individual training that your team members can take to work towards those goals, including your leadership team. You can send your leadership team for formal training to learn the skills to manage that. We don't facilitate it, but SDF is a good opportunity to apply for things as well. If you go to canadabusiness.gc.ca, you can actually plug in what type of funding it is that you're looking for, and it'll spit out a list of things that you could be eligible to apply for. So I would definitely recommend that. I don't know if you have anything else to add, Stephen.
No, I think you nailed that one.
Thanks.
So just so the folks know, there are dollars to help upskill your current employees,
Mhm.
right? And
Yes.
they can access that through either PC Works or through the Job Gym or through any of the other employment service providers that we have here in Niagara.
Most Employment Ontario providers do have that program available.
Okay,
So it
great.
is available across the province.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Okay, I don't see any questions. You did such a good job. Nobody has any questions, so that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Stephen. Really, you shared some great information, some good insight, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share that with us. Our next session, our next Lunch and Learn takes place in September. So we're taking a little break over the summer months, but you'll receive all of the details in your What's Up Wednesday email. This Thursday, we do have a coffee club happening at Camiso's from 8:30 to 9:30 a.m. We hope you can join us. They do have really great coffee, so come join us this Thursday. Thanks again for joining us, everyone, and have yourselves a wonderful afternoon. Take care.
Thank you.